Perfect. Good morning, everyone. And thanks again for joining the SAP Community call. My name is Svea Becker and I'm from the SAP Community team. And today we had a little delay with some internet issues, but I think now it's solved. And I'm really happy that I'm here with Jerome Grondin from the SAP Intelligent RPA team. Yes, he is actually part of the customer solution adoption team. And before he joined SAP, he worked for a software editor specializing in process modeling, where he was involved in various activities such as web development and coaching. And he had multiple roles, including project manager, web developer, and trainer. And yeah, we have him today for this community call on how to use document information extraction service. And I hand over to Jerome now.
Thank you, Svea. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Intelligent RPA webinar, which will focus on the use of the document information extraction service, which is an internal SAP service. First thing first, I will just introduce very briefly the context of this webinar, and then it will be a hands-on part. So I will create a whole project in order for you to demonstrate how to deal with this service. And the last part will be about the different questions you might have. Okay, then. So reading a PDF document in order to extract and structure the data it contains can be a tedious work, especially when it comes to process hundreds and hundreds of documents. And of course, this can lead to many errors, which is even more time-consuming when you want to fix them. So in this webinar, we will see how to combine Intelligent RPA and DOX, which is the abbreviation of Document Information Extraction Service, which is a service, as I was saying, you can use in order to read and extract data from PDF files, and especially, for example, from invoices or payment advices. So let's start with the demo. So first thing first. I created a project, and in this project, I just want to use the docs service in order to be able to read a PDF document and then extract its data and display them in the debugger. So the PDF document which will be displayed is which will be used, sorry, is this one. So it's a very basic document number, the different dates, the purchase order number, the global amount, and the currency, for example. So I will upload this document to the service, and then I will retrieve the extracted data in order to be able to use them in another scenario, for example, process invoices. Okay, so let's create a workflow. Okay, so now we've got our workflow. We can insert the different activities. In order to be able to use the docs service, you will need to get different information, such as first you need to create a service key in the SAP Cloud Platform Cockpit application for this specific service. So this is something I did, and in my environment, I also created different variables. Let me show you. So I've created two variables. One which is called docs. It's a basic one. It's a text variable, okay. And if this is a JSON object composed of the token URL, which is the URL I need to use in order to generate the token so I can use the service. And the second URL is an attribute called endpoint URL, which is the path, the location of the service I want to use, okay? I've also created another variable, which is the docs user, and this is a credential variable, okay, with the client's ID, which is generated in the service key, and the client secret, which is another attribute in the service key. And so I've created it, and my variable contains all of this information. So I will be able to use them in my workflow. Okay, so now, in order to use the service, first I need to get this information. So let me just add a custom activity so we can retrieve this information. So let's call it get docs credentials, for example. I will add another one in order to get the URL. Okay. Also, okay, so we can generate the code in order to insert, to declare the variables and then be able to use them. Okay, let me go back to the workflow. I would create a variable context. So let's call it, for example, docs, which is a classical name in this use case. Okay, and then so it will be, for example, the result of the data we want to retrieve. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so now, assuming that we've retrieved this information from the factory, I will implement it using the JavaScript code a bit later. Okay, we need to execute 3 different steps in order to be able to use the document information extraction service. The first one is the generation of the token. So let's do that. Call web service, call web service activity, and we'll name it generate token. I will put the different information in the code, which is easier to do. Okay, the input data, there is no need for now. Okay, once I've generated the token, okay, I need to upload the document to the document information extraction service. So this is something we can do using another web service activity. Let's call this activity upload document. I will use another URL in the JavaScript code, okay? And last, once I've uploaded the document to the docs service, I will need to perform another request to this service in order to retrieve the data. And retrieve data, okay, with another URL. Okay, let's save it. And let's build the solution. Data parameter is empty, yes. Let's put anything, it doesn't matter, we will change it in the code just after, so. This code, this piece of code, here we've got the different steps of the workflow, okay, and here we've got the very first activity, which is the retrieve, where we retrieve the credentials in order to be able to use the docs service. So let's implement that in order to be able to retrieve them from the factory. Okay, so it will be up as it is a credentials. We need to use this method credentials. The name was docs user, which is the name of the variable in the factory. Okay, then we've got that, and here it is. Okay, and we just indicate it is located on the server. Okay. So in order to be able to retrieve this information, what we can do here is cryptography and credentials. And the get function. So if okay, so if we were able to retrieve this information, we will store the username and the password, which are in fact the client ID and the client secret of the service key in the local data variable of the scenario. So create user name get, and same thing for the password. Okay. What we can do here is here login error. So well, okay. Of course, as it is an asynchronous method, we will use this instruction in the callback. So we will go to the next step only if we've got the credentials. Okay, and in that case, okay. So here it is. At this point, we have retrieve the credential in order to be able to use the service, and then we need to perform the same thing in order to retrieve the different URLs we need to use. So let's do that. First, let's declare the variable. No, it's not cryptography. It's in the setting class. Okay. Oops. It's yes. This syntax. Okay. So it is located on the server in the factory, and there is no encryption. Okay. So here it is. In order to retrieve them, we will use this piece of code. So setting docs, which is the name of the variable. Okay. And again, the get method in order to retrieve the data. Okay, and it's the same thing. First, we need to check if the result code is okay. We'll perform some stuff here, and if not, just set an error. Okay, so as it is, the content of this variable is a JSON object. Okay, so let's do that. We need to pass it. Okay. Okay. Now we've got that, and what we can do here, we will store the different URLs, so the token URL and the endpoint URL in two different local variables. So let's say local data, which is token URL, and so it will be here. We've got that. Okay, and the same thing for the endpoint. Okay, so just let me check something in the factory. So in this variable, edit, just want to make sure that, okay, so there is no slash at the end of the URL, and here it is, okay. So what we can do in order to use the same syntax, so here, what we can do here, so here, and if it ends with a slash, we'll leave it as is, and otherwise we will append slash at the end of the URL. And so we'll perform the same thing for the endpoint URL. Just okay, here it is. And set error. Once we retrieve this value, we can go to the next step of the workflow. So this is done using this instruction. Okay, so here comes the most interesting part of this webinar. So first, as I was saying, we need to generate the token in order to be able to use the service. So this can be used, this can be done. So if we use a web service activity, okay, so we stored the token URL in the local data variable, and we need to append the end of the URL in order to generate the token. So token, this is you can retrieve all this information reading the documentation of the service. Client credentials. Okay. Just let me check it. Oh, token. Yep. Okay. So this is a get method. Okay. There is no data because we don't send anything. The content type is a JSON. Okay. And we need to insert the header attribute, which is an object. And so first the accept header. So JAX content.json, and the authorization, which is the most important one in this case, which is where the value is the keyword basic and the username and the password which are encoded in base 64. Okay, and then okay. So this is used in order to generate the token. When we reach the success callback, okay, what we can do here is to store the token we retrieve in a local variable. Okay, so we can do that using this piece of code, and the token we will have to use in the upload activity and the retrieve results activities is composed of the bearer keyword and the token which is generated. So it will be in the res, which is a result, and it is the attribute access underscore token. And again, you can retrieve the name of this attribute in the documentation of the docs service. Okay, and we go to the next step. If there is an error, what we can do here is okay, and in order to get more details. Okay, so this first step was to generate the token. Now we need to upload the document. Okay, so I will hard code the path, the location of the document in the code, but you can put it in a variable, for example. Okay, so in order to do that, for the URL, we need to use the endpoint, which was stored in the local data variable. Okay. And we need to append the document jobs, which is the correct thing in order to call the specific API of the service. It is a post method, okay, and the data here is not needed, but it will be a form data attribute, which is an array, okay, composed of two objects. The first one is the file and the location of the file. Okay, so it was PDF. Okay, just let's make sure of the file of the path. Yeah, this is the name and it is in lowercase. The type of the file, so it is a PDF document. And the name of the attribute when we send it to the service, which is file. And the second object in the form data array is the different options we need to use in order for the service to be able to retrieve the different information. So it's the value. It is yes, it is a value. We need to stringify some parameters. So yes, the docs option, and I will show you the composition of this option just after that. The type, which is a JSON. Okay. And the name, which is options in this case. Okay. Again, we need to add the header in order to be able to authenticate. So let's do that. So the first one will be again the e.ajax.content.json, and the second one will be the authorization header with the token variable, which was retrieved from the previous activity, just over there. And of course, we've got the two callbacks, one for the success and the other one for the error. Okay, so let's change this piece of code and change response text in order to get more details in the case we've got an error. And so this, once we uploaded the document, we will execute the success callback. Okay, but it doesn't mean that the service has finished processing the document. When you upload the document, in fact, the service just sends you back a unique ID of the document you've just uploaded, and you will need to use this ID when you want to retrieve the extracted data. So let me show you. Doc ID, which will take the value of the attribute ID of the result we get. Okay, and we can go to the next step, which is the retrieval of the data. And now the last part. So at this point, so we generated the token and we uploaded the document. And once we uploaded the document, we got a unique ID for this very specific document we just uploaded. And we need to use this ID in order to execute a query to retrieve the extracted data. When you do that, as this operation might take a while if it is a huge document or for different reasons, if you perform this query to retrieve the data, you might have two different status. The first one is pending, which means the service is still processing the document and the data are not ready yet to be sent. And the other status is done, which means the document, the service has finished to process the document, and we can retrieve the data using a very specific URL. So let me show you. So the first, in order to retrieve it, so we will use again the endpoint URL plus document singular jobs. Okay. We need to append the document ID we got at the previous step. Okay, and just to make sure that the data are now cached, we will add the timestamp at the end of the query. We also need to insert the client ID, which is a fixed value in our case. Okay, and as I was saying, the timestamp. Okay, it is a get method. Okay, we don't send any data to the service at that moment. Okay, the content type is still a JSON object, and of course we need to add the same header in order to authenticate, so we can use the service. Okay, so if there is an error, again, let's set an error. Let's say set error here, okay. And if we are able to retrieve the success status when we execute this this query. So as I was saying, there is two different scenarios. The first one is we retrieve the pending code, and the other one is a done code. So if res.status pending, okay, which is the first case, and else if status done. Okay. So if we've got the pending status, it means that we need to wait the service has finished the processing of the document and then retry to get the data. So this can, so first, oops, see, and at this point. So we will wait a few seconds in order to re-execute this piece of code, okay? So yes, and let's say we will wait 5 seconds, okay? And step, and I will insert the loop name for this path, and I will change the definition of the workflow just after that. If we've got the done status, it means that we were able to retrieve the data, and so we will be able to display them in the debugger. So what we can do here, in order to display them. Extraction. The extraction attribute is composed of the header, for example. So you can find this in the documentation of the service. Okay, and so let's create an object composed of a name, okay, which is the name of the attribute we extracted. So extraction header fields dot name. There is a value which is located here, and there is also what we call a confidence score, which a number between 0 and 1, and it indicates the percentage of certainty for the value of this attribute, and it is confidence just there. Okay, and at the end, once we've created this object, we can log it in the debugger. So it is a JSON object. So let's use this method in order to display it. Okay, so wait, and here, this one will be just there. Okay, and here it is. Now the last part, the interesting one, is here. When we need to wait 5 seconds here with this piece of code, I just want to re-execute this very same step, the retrieve data, okay? And so to do that, we need to insert here in the definition of the workflow. So I add another path, and I give it the name loop, which with the value I've used in the callback of the last activity. Okay, let's build the solution. And we can launch the debugger. Upload document and specify error. Yes, okay. Just let me check. Docs option, the docs option. Here, the docs options is a list of the different attributes the service will use in order to extract data. And you can find all of these value in the documentation of the service. Just want to make sure that the client ID here is correct. Okay. And so let's put a breakpoint just there in order to see what's happening. So oh yes, of course, the two double backslash. Okay, and the third time should be the good one. Okay, so I should have inserted some logs in order to show the different steps. But yes, okay, so here we retrieve for example, the value of the document number, which is in fact the invoice number of the document. And if we have a look here, we can see that the value INV 1 2 blah blah until 8 is retrieved from the document. Okay, with a score confidence which is near the maximum value. Okay, 0.98. Just want to make sure that. Just want to understand why all of this the other value are not displayed. Okay, so extraction header fields name. Of course, here and yeah. And finally, let's start again. Just need to wait a few more seconds. Okay, so here we've got the different information which were extracted from the document. For example, as I was saying, the document number, okay. You've got the currency, for example, the net amount, the gross amount, the receiver contact, which has, for example, a confidence score, which is equal to 0. So now we can use this data in order to do, well, whatever we need with it. For example, we can imagine a scenario to process invoices where an error would be raised if the confidence score is lower than 0.6, for example, or below, or it's really up to you to decide what you want to do with this data once you are able to retrieve them. Okay. So yeah, I would like to thank you for watching. And if you've got any question regarding this webinar, just let me know.
Thank you, Jerome. It was a great presentation, and yeah, I always mention it makes sense when also the expert does some minor mistakes so that the audience really knows, okay, this happens with the two backslash, right? So all good at my end. And also the internet connection was very stable. And we have already a question in the Q&A section here. So there are different possibilities to ask question today. You can write it in the chat. You can use the Q&A, which you can access via the black menu of Zoom at the bottom of your screen. And you can also ask a question live, of course. So if you hover over your name, you can raise your hand and then we can allow you to talk. But let us start with the first question here. Is there any solution like docs, DOX written, but to extract from image file like JPEG? So you can also read them in the Q&A, Jerome, right?
Yeah. Okay. So at this at the moment there is no way for you to extract data from PNG or JPEG files using this service, but I know for sure that it is planned in the roadmap, and so it should be able in the next month. I don't know the roadmap of this service, but it will be possible in the future to do that.
Perfect. We have another one from Priya. My first question is, where can I get the documentation for documentation information extraction service?
Okay, so if you go to the portal, so it will be just it's this link. Maybe I can copy paste it in the chat.
Oh, this is perfect. Yeah.
Of the Zoom meeting. Yeah. Also, I just want to add that I'm currently writing a blog post about this very specific topic, and you will be able to find this link in the post. So no worries.
Ah, perfect. So this is my time to write your SAP Community profile here. So either if you follow the tag SAP Intelligent RPA or the Jerome's profile directly, you can get notifications when he publishes his blog posts. So this was a very good hint. The second question of Priya is, we have PDF functions which would read the PDF data. What is the difference or advantage of using document extraction service?
Okay, so indeed, built-in in the solution, inside the Intelligent RPA solution, you've got built-in function in order to read PDF documents, but you cannot use these functions when you want to extract data from scanned PDF files. You can only use this method when you want to extract data from a generated PDF file from Word, for example, when you use the Save As PDF option. If this is a scanned document, then you will need to use an OCR service, and document information extraction is the perfect one for this case.
Okay, Priya, I have unmuted you now. Maybe you want to add something here? You want to speak up?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
So document information extraction service, if it is only a scanned PDF, it's added advantage. That's what you told, right?
In fact, you can use this service for generated PDF or scanned one. It's you can do with both options.
Okay. So in which cases you expect developers to use documentation, information extraction, and then this PDF, because recently a webinar has happened on how to use PDFs also, right? Functions, new functions have also been introduced for PDFs by RPA.
Yeah, yeah. As I was saying, it really depends on the type of file you need to process. As it is a service using machine learning and etc., you are able, if you want to use the document information extraction service, you are able to send multiple formats of documents, of PDF files to this service. If you want to process multiple types of file with a built-in function, you will need to, well, make sure that you take an account the all possibilities, you know. So it might be more work to do if you want to use the built-in functions. It's really up to you to define where you want to put the cursor between I want to use only intelligent RPA solution, or maybe I just I can use an external service.
Okay, fine, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you too. So the next question would be from Evgeny, and I know that we integrated PDF.js library into the studio in the new release of Intelligent RPA. What would be the use case for document information extraction when we have this built in the desktop components? I'm sorry. In which case is it better?
So as I was saying, if you need to process a scan document, then you need to use this doc service, because the built-in PDF.js library won't allow you to do that.
Yeah, okay. He wrote in the chat that it was just answered and that it's clear. There is another one. I know that the current document information extraction does not support Cyrillic. Do you know if there are any plans on extending the language support?
That's a very good question. Actually, I don't know. We need to check in the documentation of the service. And for now, the current language which is supported is the English one. I don't know if the Cyrillic will be supported in the future. It might be worthy to ask a question to the development team of this service.
Okay, thank you. And here was one question in the chat. It's, let me check. My mouse is not working. Here we go. Are there any plans in future to support additional types of documents like bank statements, credit memos, purchase orders, utility bills?
Okay, I believe so, but again, as I'm not a member of the development team of this service, I cannot commit for that. And you will need to ask the question directly to them, so in order to get a 100% sure response.
Okay, yeah, we offer a lot of more SAP RPA Intelligent community calls. So maybe you can just join one of those. If you follow the community calls page here, which I pasted in the chat, then you can see what's upcoming, and maybe there you have the chance to speak actually to the development team. We have a question from Prashant. How AI business service is used along with document extraction process? That's
a very good question indeed, and I would be also interested in the answer. Unfortunately, I cannot answer you. So.
Okay, maybe this would be a question for the SAP community.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, this one we have already answered. The last one has been written in the chat as well in the Q&A. So are there any more questions? So I hope, yeah, I hope we answered your questions satisfying you, and you are more informed now after the call. So we can only thank you for attending today. It was a great presentation. And the recording will be available in the next days on the calls page of 2020. And yeah, we wish you a good day. And Jerome, again, thanks very much for being part of the SAP Community Calls.
Thank you very much, Via. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.